Some stories begin in ordinary moments, but end up revealing the deepest aspects of people. That's exactly what happened that afternoon in a busy bank branch. The bank was full. Long queues and murmurs of dissatisfaction created a tense atmosphere. Staff scurried around, trying to deal with the chaos, while impatient customers alternated between looking at their watches and muttering their complaints. In the middle of it all, Maggie Thompson, an elderly woman, was waiting anxiously. She held an envelope, her fingers slightly trembling. Maggie had gone to the bank in search of answers. What seemed like a simple mistake on her account was, for her, a matter of survival. However, Maggie was about to face something much bigger than bureaucracy. Finally, Maggie stepped forward and approached one of the service desks. She adjusted her coat, trying to appear confident, but her expression gave away a slight trace of insecurity. "I hope they can sort this out today," she muttered to herself, looking at the envelope with apprehension. Meanwhile, one of the bank employees, Todd Murphy, was walking around the room. He cast quick glances at the customers and, without saying a word, seemed to prioritize only those who appeared to have greater financial resources. For Todd, some problems seemed more important than others. Maggie, with her battered envelope, was far from a priority that day. Hesitating, Maggie looked around before approaching the counter. Before she spoke, she took a deep breath, as if she knew she would need strength to be heard. Maggie didn't know it, but that afternoon would be unlike any other. Her attempt to be heard would lead to a moment of great humiliation, but the unexpected was already on its way. Maggie finally made her way to the reception desk. The attendant, Brittany Parker, a young woman with a tired and impatient expression, looked up briefly before going back to typing on her computer. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you?" asked Brittany, without looking away from the screen. Maggie cradled the envelope in her hands and took a deep breath. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm here because my bill showed some charges that I believe are wrong. I've brought everything I can to try and understand." Brittany finally looked at Maggie, but her gaze was indifferent. She picked up the envelope mechanically and began to leaf through it without paying much attention. "Let's see. Here it is. These charges are standard, ma'am. They're all listed in your account contract," said Brittany, handing the envelope back with little effort. Visibly shaken, Maggie tried to argue. "But I can't pay these charges. There must be some mistake. I was never informed about these charges." Brittany sighed and rolled her eyes, attracting the attention of a few people nearby. "Madam, perhaps you don't understand how things work these days. Banks have policies, and these charges are automatic. There's nothing I can do," Brittany replied with a tone full of disdain. Maggie felt diminished. That answer not only dismissed her problem, but also made her feel helpless. Trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall, Maggie whispered, "I just want what's fair." Brittany crossed her arms and smiled wryly, as if she were in control of the situation. "Fair, ma'am. If you want to avoid fees, you need to keep more money in the account. That's how it works." The public humiliation began. Nearby, customers whispered among themselves, and Maggie felt the weight of their stares. Still, she tried to keep her composure. "It can't be like this. I just want to understand better what happened," said Maggie, her voice shaking. Todd Murphy was about to make things worse for Maggie, but what he didn't know was that someone unexpected was already watching. Todd, the manager, approached the counter with firm steps. His presence commanded attention, and Brittany immediately straightened her posture, as if trying to look more efficient. "Is there a problem here?" Todd asked, crossing his arms and casting a quick glance at Maggie before focusing on Brittany. Brittany smiled nervously. "No, sir, just a customer having trouble understanding the account policies." Already visibly uncomfortable, Maggie tried to intervene. "That's not it. I believe there was a mistake on my account. I just want to sort it out." Todd raised his hand, interrupting her. Ma'am, if you think there's been a mistake, you should have read the contract before opening the account. It's all very clear to anyone who pays attention. Maggie was silent for a moment, surprised by Todd's rude tone. She took a deep breath before replying, "I've always kept my account up to date. These charges came out of the blue. I'm just asking someone to review it." Todd let out a short, almost mocking laugh. "Review, ma'am? What's in the system is in the system. We don't review something that's automatic." Maggie felt the weight of her humiliation increase. It wasn't just the coldness of the words, but the way Todd spoke, as if she had no value. She looked around, searching for a look of support among the customers, but found only indifference. Avoiding looking at Maggie, many looked away, while others whispered among themselves. Todd leaned slightly over the counter, looking directly at Maggie. "If you can't afford those fees, maybe this bank isn't the right place for you." Maggie opened her mouth to reply, but indignation and shame made it difficult to find the words. She looked down at the envelope in her hands, feeling completely defeated. For Todd, the conversation seemed over. Maggie was nothing more than an inconvenient customer. Then, something unexpected happened. On the other side of the bench, a discreet figure wearing a casual jacket and cap was watching everything intently. He began to approach slowly, without immediately drawing attention to himself. But when he heard Todd's words, he decided to intervene. A calm, firm voice cut through the silence. "Why are you talking to her like that?" The entire bench stopped. All eyes turned to the figure who had spoken. At first glance, the man seemed ordinary, but within a few seconds, everyone realized that he was anything but ordinary. The silence on the bench was absolute. The man, wearing a casual jacket and cap, carried a presence that captivated everyone's attention. Maggie looked at him, surprised by his intervention. Todd Murphy turned slowly, clearly irritated by the interruption. "And who are you to question what's going on here?" Todd asked, crossing his arms and frowning. The man took a few steps forward and slowly took off his cap. When he finally revealed his face, a murmur went through the room. "Jackie Chan," whispered someone in disbelief. Yes, that was him. The world-famous actor was there, in the middle of that bench, and now everyone knew it. Jackie kept his posture calm, but his eyes were fixed on Todd. "It doesn't matter who I am," said Jackie in a serious but controlled tone. "What matters is why you're treating this lady like this." Maggie was even more stunned. She looked at Jackie, almost unable to believe that someone like him was there, defending her. Todd took a deep breath, trying to keep his composure. "Mr. Jackie, I had no idea you were here, but you see, this is none of your business. We have policies at this bank, and this lady is not complying with them." Jackie smiled slightly wryly. "Policies?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "Or an excuse to humiliate someone who just wants to solve a problem?" Jackie's presence was magnetic. Even Brittany, who had seemed confident before, now looked nervously at Todd, waiting for him to say something to justify the situation. Jackie turned to Maggie, speaking in a softer tone. "Ma'am, what exactly is the problem? Can you show me what's going on?" Maggie hesitated, but handed Jackie the envelope. He took it carefully and began to examine the documents. After a few seconds, he looked up at Todd. "This is a mistake," said Jackie. "These charges shouldn't be here. You're going to fix this right now." Todd tried to argue, but Jackie held up her hand, interrupting him. "If it's a mistake, you'll make it right, and if it isn't, the consequences will be much worse for you." The whole bank was in shock. No one had expected someone like Jackie Chan to intervene so directly, but he wasn't finished yet. Jackie placed the envelope on the counter, fixing Todd with a firm gaze. "I want you to review this right away, and I'm not leaving until everything is settled." Todd was speechless. What he didn't know was that Jackie was beginning to realize that this was part of something much bigger than just a mistake on Maggie's account. Visibly uncomfortable, Todd adjusted the collar of his shirt and cast a tense glance at Brittany, who was equally lost and at a loss for words. But Jackie wasn't willing to wait. Leaning slightly on the counter, he maintained his characteristic calm tone. "We're not just talking about a simple mistake here, are we? We're talking about how you treat a customer who deserves respect, and from what I've seen, that's clearly lacking." Brittany tried to break the silence, her voice shaking slightly. "Mr. Jackie, perhaps you don't understand how the system works. We follow strict guidelines." Jackie raised his hand again, interrupting her politely but firmly. "Strict guidelines?" she asked. "I understand enough to know that these fees are completely arbitrary, and I also know that you have the autonomy to correct them." Maggie, standing next to him, clasped her hands together, still incredulous at what was happening. Jackie looked at her, offering a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, we'll sort it out." The entire bank watched the scene intently, both customers and employees in complete silence. Everyone was waiting to see the outcome. Jackie picked up the envelope again and showed Todd the papers. "These charges," she said, picking up the documents. "They started 2 months ago, right?" Jackie looked at Maggie, who nodded. "Yes," she replied softly. Jackie turned to Todd. "And now tell me, why have these maintenance fees tripled for no apparent reason?" said Jackie, her voice firm. "There doesn't seem to be a legitimate reason." Todd opened his mouth to reply, but Jackie interrupted him again. "You'd better think carefully before you give your answer, because if this is more than a simple mistake, you and everyone else here will have a much bigger problem on their hands." The tension was almost palpable. The employees, who had previously seemed indifferent, were now visibly nervous. Todd knew he couldn't avoid the situation any longer. Swallowing dryly, he took a step back. I'm going to need to review this in the system," Todd stammered. Jackie crossed her arms, her gaze firmly fixed on Todd. "Then start now." Maggie watched in disbelief as Todd rushed to the computer and began typing frantically. Brittany tried to keep up, but was clearly panicking. While Todd reviewed the account, Jackie stood firm by Maggie's side. What had initially seemed like a simple mistake was beginning to reveal something much more serious. Todd stood up from his chair, visibly sweating. "Mr. Jackie, there's something wrong here," he admitted hesitantly. Jackie leaned forward slightly. "How wrong?" Todd glanced at Maggie and then back at Jackie before finally confessing, "It seems that these charges were applied to several accounts, most of them belonging to elderly customers." The silence in the room became even heavier. Jackie shook her head slowly. "That's not a mistake, this is a scam." Maggie wasn't the only victim, and Jackie knew she was only just beginning to unravel the magnitude of the situation. Todd, now completely panicked, was desperately looking for a way out, but there was no escape. Visibly shaken, Todd fiddled nervously with his tie as he tried to explain the situation to Jackie, who kept her gaze steady and unwavering. "Mr. Jackie, I swear this was a system error," stammered Todd, his voice shaking. "It wasn't intentional." Jackie narrowed his eyes, still with his arms crossed. "A system error? How convenient. Why do these errors only affect the accounts of elderly customers? Did you think no one would notice?" Maggie looked directly at Todd, her indignation evident. Finally, she mustered the courage to speak up. "So I'm not the only one? How many people have you cheated?" It was clear to everyone in the bank that Todd had no convincing explanation. Brittany, standing next to him, looked even more nervous, as if she knew that something much bigger was about to be revealed. Todd tried to answer, but his voice failed him. I'll look into it. I need more time to find out what happened." Jackie stepped forward, resting her hands on the counter. "You've had enough time. Now you're going to tell the truth." Jackie turned to Todd, who was visibly terrified. "How many people were affected by this? Tell the truth." Todd swallowed and looked at Brittany, who quickly looked away. I don't know, maybe hundreds. Todd's confession dropped like a bombshell. It wasn't just Maggie. There were countless other victims. Jackie knew she had to act. She took out her cell phone and started recording a video. What you're hearing now is the manager of a bank admitting that his institution is charging undue fees to elderly customers in order to increase profits, said Jackie, pointing the camera at Todd and Brittany. This is unacceptable, and we're going to make sure that everyone knows what's going on here. Desperate, Todd raised his hands. Wait, please don't do this. We can fix this. I can fix it right now. Jackie lowered her phone slightly, but her tone remained firm. Fix it. This isn't just about returning the money. It's about justice. Do you think an apology is enough? Todd looked at Jackie, sweat dripping down his forehead. What do you want from me? He asked, almost in desperation. Jackie leaned in slightly, fixing her eyes on Todd's. I want you to make it right for every single person who was harmed, and I want the authorities to know exactly what happened here. At that moment, Todd realized that there was no escape. He nodded, resigned, while Jackie stood firm, determined to ensure that everyone received the respect and justice they deserved. Hours later, the bank issued an official statement announcing radical changes. Todd and Brittany were removed from their positions, and a full audit was launched to identify all the accounts affected by the wrongful charges. Maggie, alongside Jackie, received more than an apology. She was reimbursed for all the money lost and received additional compensation for the inconvenience she faced. Mrs. Thompson, on behalf of the bank, we apologize for this terrible situation. We are committed to putting this right immediately, said a bank representative, visibly embarrassed. Maggie looked at Jackie with tears in her eyes. I could never have done this on my own. Thank you for believing in me. Jackie offered a small smile. You should never have gone through this, but now it's not just about you. We're helping a lot of other people who have also been hurt. As she left the bank, Maggie looked different, still humble, but with a new glimmer of hope in her eyes. Jackie, standing next to her, looked at the other customers waiting in silence, clearly touched by what they had just witnessed. Jackie turned to the crowd and spoke clearly. Never let anyone tell you that you are worth less. Whether you're old, young, rich, or struggling, everyone deserves respect. And above all, never be afraid to fight for what is right. Her words echoed around the room, drawing applause from the customers who, until then, had seemed indifferent. Jackie gave Maggie a discreet wave goodbye and left the bank, leaving behind a lesson that no one would soon forget. A few days later, Jackie's video exposing the bank's scam went viral, racking up millions of views. Not only did the bank face a rigorous investigation, but many victims began to recover the savings they had lost. Maggie's story became more than a quest for justice. It became a symbol of hope for many. Respect and justice should be the only rules we follow. That was Maggie's remarkable story, and how Jackie Chan's courage brought justice and hope to her and so many others. But now I want to know, what did you think of this story? Do you believe that fighting for what is right can inspire real change? Leave your opinion in the comments. If this story moved you, don't let it stop here. Share it with someone who needs to hear this powerful message about empathy and resilience. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep following stories that transform and warm the heart. Want more inspiration? Choose one of the videos on the screen and immerse yourself in another incredible story that will renew your faith in humanity. See you in the next video.